guys, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Pantera's The Great Southern Trendkill. This was Pantera's 8th album, released in May 1996. For metalheads, Pantera probably needs no introduction, but they were a Texas band that was active in the 80s and 90s, and they were one of the main bands to make groove metal popular. They've remained pretty influential and very popular to this day, and this right here is my favorite Pantera album. Today I'm going to talk about why. So this is definitely Pantera's angriest and heaviest album. This was a bit of a dark period in the band's history. Phil Anselmo, the vocalist, was going through some personal struggles with drugs at this time, and he and the rest of the band weren't on the greatest of terms. Phil actually recorded his vocals separately from the rest of the band in New Orleans, while the rest of the members recorded their parts in Texas. So the band wasn't exactly one unit at this point. And you can totally hear all of Phil's anger and frustration coming through in his vocal performance here. So I just love how aggressive this album sounds. There's plenty of down-tuned guitars. As I said, Phil's vocal performance is very frustrated sounding, and overall the album just has a pretty dark sound. When I listen to it, I can completely feel the band's anger. This album wastes no time to get going. It opens with the title track called The Great Southern Trendkill. I love how this track opens with some ferocious chugging on the guitars, a blast beat on the drums, and an anguished scream from Phil. You know what you're getting from the first few seconds of this album. So yeah, this first track is a highlight of the album as it's just so well written. The second half of the track slows down with a very groovy guitar riff and an excellent solo from the guitarist Dimebag Darrell. So I'm hooked immediately from the start of this album. Tens is another highlight of the album. While this track is still despondent sounding, it's a bit more low-key than the heavier sections here. And this track shows that this album isn't all just unfiltered aggression and anger. There's actually a beautiful, clean guitar interlude here, followed by another excellent solo from Dimebag Darrell. His guitar phrasing here is impeccable, and he has such a distinct and likable guitar tone. The song 13 Steps to Nowhere opens with a very cool sort of shuffling drum beat, making use of the toms, snare, cymbals, and kick drum. The drummer Vinnie Paul does an excellent job here, as well as throughout the rest of the album. Now the track Suicide Note Part 1 has a pretty interesting sound from Pantera, as it's basically an acoustic ballad, and Phil's vocals here are pretty subdued actually. The lyrics here are also pretty interesting, as Phil's pretty much talking about how drug addiction can really ruin your life. And even though musically I don't like this track as much as a lot of the heavier songs, it's certainly not a bad song, and it's grown on me quite a bit over time. Now I love Suicide Note Part 2. This is probably the heaviest song on the album. The main riff is very aggressive and unique sounding. It makes use of a whammy pedal to create some very cool high-pitched notes. The drums are again playing a blast beat, and again Phil sounds extremely angry. And the ending of the song really slows down the main riff and gets somehow even heavier. Living Through Me, Hell's Wrath is probably my least favorite track on the album. The riffs here just don't feel as well written as the riffs on many of the other songs, and this track just fails to grab me as much. It's certainly not a bad song, and there is a pretty interesting industrial influenced interlude here. And of course I have to talk about Floods, one of Pantera's most popular songs, and for good reason. I mean, it's great. It has such an ominous atmosphere with the slow, creeping guitar riffs and the sounds of rain and thunder added to create an apocalyptic atmosphere. And this has such an iconic metal solo. I've already made my point about Dimebag's guitar playing, but this again just shows how great of a songwriter he was. There's so much emotion packed into the solo here. It's honestly jaw-dropping. And the album ends with a very nice 1-2 punch of the Underground in America and Reprise Sandblasted Skin. The aggression stays unrelenting here, and the riffs in these songs are just so good. I love how Phil repeatedly screams "the trend is dead" at the end of The Underground in America over some pretty intense feedback. This right here feels like the climax of the album, as it feels like everything that came before has been leading to this moment. And then the song flows seamlessly into the last track, Sandblasted Skin, which is just a cherry on top of this album. Overall, I just really love how heavy and angry this album is. It's definitely Pantera at their most aggressive, and I can connect to this aggression very much. Also, pretty much every band member's performance here is standout. I would give the Great Southern Trendkill an 8.4 out of 10. It seems to me that this album is often overlooked in favor of Pantera's earlier albums, but in my mind, this is unquestionably their best. They continue to get heavier over time, and this was just them at their peak. Well guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've heard the Great Southern Trendkill, tell me what you think about it in the comments. If you want to see more reviews like this, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.